All animals communicate, but we humans are the only ones that communicate through a medium of language, and there are more than 7,000 languages spoken worldwide today. Communication is essential in every aspect, and therefore language is a powerful discovery. But since language is not, or specifically cannot be fossilized, we can only rely on circumstantial evidence for information on how it all started, putting aside the continuous debates. Communication at the beginning of human evolution started with grunts and some peculiar sounds, but the question here is which was the first human species to say a word? You've guessed it right. It is once again the Homo erectus. Although a primitive form of communication has a wide range of timeline from 2 million years ago to most recently 50,000 years ago. Keep in mind that we are talking about a language here, not communication. Communication can date back to millions of years, even back to when our ancestors started wearing pieces of stone, or we can say jewelry, around their neck. Some researchers say this was a way of communication where a certain arrangement of the stones meant something. Coming to language, many approaches have been made to trace back to the origin of language. Some used the timeline of the development of tools, some tried to trace it back to the first migration from Africa, but sadly all these approaches failed. This is because the origin of language is a topic that cannot go about without many questions, controversies, and many different views. Homo erectus have contributed so much to what we are and what we have today, although when it comes to language, they may have not had the same ability to use words like we have. In fact, even the Neanderthals, who are our closest ancestors, did not have the same ability of speech as we do today. This is all because of the location of our larynx or our voice box. The larynx in Homo sapiens is a little lower down the throat than in other primates. Therefore, this is what stops them from pronouncing or saying certain words that we can today. A lowered down larynx enables us to say a number of vowels with their distinctive sound. But yet again, there were so many people that did not agree with this research. This is because evidence of language origin or development is so scarce. Some researchers even believe that communication started off as a sign language and progressed from there. Some researchers also concluded that everything in language is built out of other human abilities, like the ability for vocal imitation, the ability to memorize vast amounts of information, the desire to communicate, and the ability to cooperate, which required a larger brain, which brings us back to Homo erectus. The range of the size of their brains were between 800 to 950 cubic centimeters, which is why they were very smart and are the species of firsts. Now, coming to proto-language. Some researchers say that evolution of language may have started out from the grunts and the symbols turning into words, one word at a time that is. Then slowly, these words turned into small sentences without grammar and went up from there. Overall, how language evolved is still a mystery or not to those that have their own theories. But one thing is for sure, that someone somewhere thousands of years ago, an individual of the Homo erectus said something, and that's where it all began. Evidence that erectus had language comes from their settlements, their art, their symbols, their sailing ability, their tools, their ability to control fire, proving that to get wherever they were, they needed language. So, did language develop all of a sudden, or did it all happen gradually? If so, how did it happen? These are tough questions to answer because we are talking about people living thousands of years ago and talking about a field with no proper evidence. Hoping that someday a clearer picture of the origin of language will be provided, this is where the video ends. Let us continue the discussion in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys. Do drop in your suggestions and thoughts in the comment section below, and do not forget to support us and our channel by clicking like and subscribe. See you soon in our next video.
You're telling a friend an amazing story, and you just get to the best part when suddenly he interrupts. The alien and I, not me and the alien. Most of us would probably be annoyed, but aside from the rude interruption, does your friend have a point? Was your sentence actually grammatically incorrect? And if he still understood it, why does it even matter? From the point of view of linguistics, grammar is a set of patterns for how words are put together to form phrases or clauses, whether spoken or in writing. Different languages have different patterns. In English, the subject normally comes first, followed by the verb and then the object, while in Japanese and many other languages, the order is subject, object, verb. Some scholars have tried to identify patterns common to all languages, but apart from some basic features, like having nouns or verbs, few of these so-called linguistic universals have been found. And while any language needs consistent patterns to function, the study of these patterns opens up an ongoing debate between two positions known as prescriptivism and descriptivism. Grossly simplified, prescriptivists think a given language should follow consistent rules, while descriptivists see variation and adaptation as a natural and necessary part of language. For much of history, the vast majority of language was spoken. But as people became more interconnected and writing gained importance, written language was standardized to allow broader communication and ensure that people in different parts of a realm could understand each other. In many languages, this standard form came to be considered the only proper one, despite being derived from just one of many spoken varieties, usually that of the people in power. Language purists worked to establish and propagate this standard by detailing a set of rules that reflected the established grammar of their times. And rules for written grammar were applied to spoken language as well. Speech patterns that deviated from the written rules were considered corruptions, or signs of low social status, and many people who had grown up speaking in these ways were forced to adopt the standardized form. More recently, however, linguists have understood that speech is a separate phenomenon from writing, with its own regularities and patterns. Most of us learn to speak at such an early age that we don't even remember it. We form our spoken repertoire through unconscious habits, not memorized rules. And because speech also uses mood and intonation for meaning, its structure is often more flexible, adapting to the needs of speakers and listeners. This could mean avoiding complex clauses that are hard to parse in real time, making changes to avoid awkward pronunciation, or removing sounds to make speech faster. The linguistic approach that tries to understand and map such differences without dictating correct ones is known as descriptivism. Rather than deciding how language should be used, it describes how people actually use it and tracks the innovations they come up with in the process. But while the debate between prescriptivism and descriptivism continues, the two are not mutually exclusive. At its best, prescriptivism is useful for informing people about the most common established patterns at a given point in time. This is important not only for formal contexts, but it also makes communication easier between non-native speakers from different backgrounds. Descriptivism, on the other hand, gives us insight into how our minds work and the instinctive ways in which we structure our view of the world. Ultimately, grammar is best thought of as a set of linguistic habits that are constantly being negotiated and reinvented by the entire group of language users. Like language itself, it's a wonderful and complex fabric woven through the contributions of speakers and listeners, writers and readers, prescriptivists and descriptivists from both near and far.